Hello, everybody. Holy cow, it's happened again. Episode 2 actually made it. So I was able to find the time. It happened. I'm recording it. This is like historic. Well, in my own little world, I think it's historic. Anyway, let's get on with it. Episode 2. There's a couple things we're going to talk about. Our journey, my wife and I, Tracy, our journey with Airbnb. So we are absolutely fortunate to have a second home. I call it a cottage. It's not really a cottage, it is a second home with Wi Fi and indoor plumbing and air conditioning. So I've been told it's not a cottage, but I think it's a cottage. Anyway, I'm just going to talk briefly about what we did to convert it into an Airbnb, but not an Airbnb exclusively. We still live there. Like we still use it. So it's like a shared, we use it, but we rent it out as Airbnb as well. Other thing I want to talk about is private mortgages. I get so many questions about this and I want to talk about it. When it's good, when it's not good, what do you need to look for? Some I'm gonna call it maybe fraud going on with them. We're gonna talk all about that. All right, episode 2. Turn up the volume. Let's do it.
Welcome to the Green Effect Podcast. Finance, life, business, and everything in between. And now, your host, Stephen Green.
So, my wife and I, we bought a second home September, October 2019. And we, as everything else in our lives, we do everything ass backwards. So, we're very fortunate to have at our home in Kitchener a pool, an in-ground pool in the backyard, which, believe me, came in very, very handy during COVID for obvious reasons. Okay, but again, we do things ass backwards. We spend most of our summers in Kitchener because of the pool. It's where our friends are, stuff like that. And we like to spend time away from our home in Kitchener in the winters. So we found a great, beautiful home out near Goderich, and we've owned it since again 2019. It is an owner occupied home. God, I even talk like a mortgage person, eh? It's an owner occupied home. and we love it. We absolutely love it. It's a restored century home. It's in a great area. It's a very quiet area, and we love it. Fast forward to this past summer. And this next part, honestly, it depends who you ask. Like most things with my marriage, where, my wife has always said we should Airbnb it in the summer. Nobody's ever there. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. Too busy, right? Especially with the way the market has been. So finally, and again, a bit of a bone of contention, I came up with a fantastic idea this past spring to Airbnb the cottage, just part time, not all the time. And I shared this great, bright idea I had with my wife. Well, that was a very short conversation. She said, we went through the road of you don't listen, you didn't listen. I've been saying this for years. Anyway, I'll let you know if this whole thing ever gets settled, but I think I came up with the idea. Moving forward, we've Airbnb'd out our cottage. It's gone very, very well. I am fully educated. I mean, fully educated on Airbnb through YouTube University. I think I've graduated pretty much. And just to tell you a little bit about some of our experiences. So, um, again, it's a two-story home, 3 bedroom, 2 bathrooms, washer dryer. It's a regular home, really. But what we chose to do, because it is a bit of a part-time gig, and it's not a full Airbnb, just from a timing perspective, what we decided to do was we took our master bedroom and we put a lock on the door. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm not feeling someone doing the nasty on our bed that we sleep in. So we just kind of settled and said, okay, we'll do a 2 bedroom Airbnb with 1 bathroom. So the bathroom on the main floor, we put a lock on that door as well, because that's where our supplies are and our washer dryer. We just made a choice. It's not a longer term rental. It's not a month, 2 months, week max. 4 people max. So if you have a property you're thinking of doing this with, you really, and I learned this off YouTube University, you really have to envision, who do you want in your Airbnb? We have chosen to have very small groups of 2 or 3 people, or 4 if it's a family, no kids under 12. It's just not childproof or child safe. It's just not. So it's not us being difficult, it's more us being concerned about safety for our guests. So that's just how we designed it. And we didn't want to get grief from the neighbors. I don't want to have to deal with parties of 10 people showing up at the house. We have had some guests say, hey, can we bring a 5th person? Because we do have a pull-out in the living room, a pull-out sofa. And we said, sure, there's an additional cost, because with Airbnb, it all just comes down to cost and income versus expenses. The kind of things I've told my investor clients about for years. So you have to understand your expenses versus your income. So we've had some fantastic guests, and again, we've kept it very controlled. We have turned away guests due to past reviews and stuff like that, which we are allowed to do. We're now super hosts, which is kind of cool. I mean, you have the one guy who loves to get competitive over absolutely nothing, a carrot like that, and man, that's all I've been doing since leading up to the first time they were going to review our reviews and our account. So it's been good so far. We've had some challenges. We had our first guests show up just recently, the last one, with people that were not registered. We had people, they were planning to bring friends over. A couple of little tidbits that I've learned from, again, YouTube University with these Airbnbs. A couple of things around, all guests have to be registered. If you bring someone over even for a dinner to meet with you or to visit you or whatever, I need to know who it is. I need to know their name, their address. I need to know who they are, mainly from an insurance and a liability perspective. I put it to the guests this way. If the police question me on who was in my home when a TV went missing, or who was in the home when someone got hurt or a crime was committed, I need to know who the heck is in my private residence that you have booked. So, not being difficult, but I need to know who's in there. Okay. The other thing, the little tidbit we've learned, and definitely now because of what we just had happen, we don't book to folks that are local in the area or are coming back to visit family necessarily, because that's not our client base. Okay, our clients are more folks that are visiting the area to go to, Bayfield or Goderich or Grand Bend or whatever. But we also don't want to have parties. And that's what happened with the last reservation. They were from the area and they accidentally disclosed, really is what happened, that they were going to have a bunch of friends over with more children. And I was like, no, that's not what we agreed upon. It's not safe. That I'm not comfortable with. Again, income versus expense. You bring 4 more people over. I got more toilet paper being used, water. There's just a lot of impact there. So we've really enjoyed it. And I will say, we did have a challenge with the last guest. I'll be the first to admit, my first experience with Airbnb, like with their call center, was absolutely incredible. They were very, very good. And now, I was transparent, I was in the right, so fair enough, but they were very, very good. So I don't know, maybe I got lucky the first time around with somebody, but I had a good experience. So I'll probably talk more about the Airbnb as time goes on, but so far so good for us. It hasn't been booked in like 3 weeks. I don't know, maybe something with the higher rates and people cutting back on travel cost. I don't know. We'll see. But so far, so good. So now we're also getting into the time where my wife and I spend a lot more time up there anyway. So it's kind of not a bad thing. So more to come on this. If you have any questions, drop it in the comments. After you give me a 5-star review on your podcatcher, hint, hint. Okay, let's talk about private mortgages because this has become a really hot button topic. So, for those of you who don't know, private mortgages are mortgages that are completed whereby the funds for the mortgage are generated from maybe an individual or a trust or something along those lines. And these funds come at a much higher rate because you can whip together a private mortgage in 2 days. They're not asking a whole lot of questions. Their approval process is pay the crazy high interest rate and the lender fee or the fees they charge in exchange for very few questions asked, quick turnaround, and you get your money. There is a place in the world for privates, and privates are here for short term. Okay, so back in the day when people used to flip homes, you get a private mortgage, right? You get the private, do your work, in and out in a month or two. That's how long a flip should take if you're doing it properly and everything's lined up. Problem is, sometimes flips take a lot longer, or there's issues with zoning or whatever. Or our most recent problem, where rates have gone up, property values have dropped, and now the client that's trying to flip can't get out of the private because the value is so low. We've seen that with a couple of clients, which is truly unfortunate, but a topic for a completely other podcast. So this is what private mortgages are really meant for: short-term financing. Unfortunately, some people have gotten into situations where they're doing 12 months of a private and then renewing. I tell you right now, private funds don't want anything to have to do with longer term financing. They want to get in, get paid, and move on to the next project. Now, if anybody, and I don't want to talk about this next part too much, but if anybody watched that CVC Marketplace episode where basically they've identified all sorts of different fraud for mortgages with mortgage folks and realtors or whatever, I don't know if anybody caught this, but there was a very common fraud that they were talking about. And the fraud, and I'm sorry, I'm a mortgage professional, keyword there being professional. If you get into this scenario, it is the fault of the lender. This next scenario I'm about to explain. So there's a common, I'm going to call it fraud, where the mortgage lender says, broker, bank, whatever, it really doesn't matter. Yep, no problem, you're pre-approved. And they don't actually do anything. They don't actually do the pre-approval. And in the show, the clients that had this happen to them said, yeah, we asked for a pre-approval, but the guy said, oh, don't worry about it. Quote, don't worry about it. Or we didn't even give him any documents, and he said we were pre-approved, don't worry about it. Red flag, red flag, red flag, red flag. Everywhere a red flag. And what ended up happening was, sure enough, a day or two before closing, oh, sorry, we can't get this mortgage approved, but I can save the day as a mortgage person and put you into a private mortgage at 12.99% with a 4% lender fee, of which 1 or 2% comes back to me as the mortgage lender. Now, if you're a client in that scenario, guess what? You don't have a choice. You're taking that private or you will lose your deposit. You could be sued. The list goes on. This, my friends, is a common fraud. FRAUD. Did I get that right? I hope so. Okay. So, common fraud. Do your due diligence as a consumer. See a pre-approval letter. Make sure you're dealing with someone who's reputable. Okay, really important stuff. Anyway, coming back to private mortgages, it has become a thing where people have taken more advantage of them than they should, longer terms. And we're starting to hear about some private funds calling their loan early or not renewing at the 1 year mark because of liquidity concerns. Okay. You got to remember with a private mortgage, you are only nowadays, it'd be crazy not to, but most privates only go to now 70, 75, maybe 80%. Can you go more than that? Sure. I've said it before, anybody can get a mortgage. I just don't know how much you're going to pay. Okay. So most privates now are not even going very high on loan to value. So that is the loan amount compared to the value of the property because of the values of the homes and liquidity concerns. So if you're in a private mortgage, I hope you're in it for the right reasons. If you're a realtor and you hear your clients getting into these pickles and you hear they got to take a private, that's a red flag, man. Raise that up. That's a problem. Okay, unless it's truly a flip or a short-term finance, the private is not there for that. Now, hey, listen, is there an odd situation where, the client's like, I got no income, no this, no that, and all my income is through Bitcoin and I can't claim it? I don't know. Sure, go ahead, take a private. I guess you have to, but the intent of a private mortgage is not, I repeat, not a longer-term situation. So, any questions on this, please let me know. More than glad to talk about it and go through kind of what's important and what you need to look for. All right, I'm over my 15 minutes. Who cares? It's my show. I can do what I want, so whatever. Anyway, hey, follow, 5 stars, baby. Comment on your podcatcher. SG Mortgage Advice, Instagram, TikTok. And until next time, see you in episode 3 if I remember to do the episode, which I probably will. Talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Green Effect Podcast. Subscribe to this podcast on iTunes or Google Play so you catch the next episode. And don't forget to leave a review. Much appreciated.